When you think of the founding teams of the National Basketball Association, you probably think of the Knicks or the Celtics, right? But what if I told you that one of the original NBA franchises came from a small city in Wisconsin, played in an armory, and has been pretty much completely lost to history? Well, this is the story of the NBA's forgotten founder.
I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? Just try to picture this. This tiny team from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, steps onto the court against the mighty Minneapolis Lakers, the team that would go on to win the whole thing, a team absolutely stacked with future Hall of Famers. What chance could they possibly have?
Not only did they have a chance, they actually won. That one game is a perfect snapshot of one of the most unlikely stories in all of sports history. So, how did this happen? How did a team from Sheboygan even end up in the NBA in the first place? And why on earth have most of us never heard of them?
Okay, so the team was called the Sheboygan Red Skins, and their legacy is so much bigger than just one lucky win. They are, officially, a charter member of the NBA, a true founding franchise, there from the very start. Their journey was, well, it was a roller coaster. You have to remember, in the early days of pro basketball, things were chaotic. The Redskins played in 3 different leagues in just 3 years. It just goes to show you how volatile everything was before the NBA became the giant we know today. To really understand this team, you have to go back to their very bizarre beginnings. Long before they were an NBA franchise, they were just a local club sponsored by whatever business in Sheboygan was willing to chip in. And the sponsors were, pretty unique.
You can actually track their history through their name changes, and it really shows their deep community roots. They started in 1933 as the Ballhorns, backed by a funeral parlor. Then they became the Art Imigs, sponsored by a dry cleaner, and then the Enzo Gels, named after a gelatin company. It wasn't until 1938 that local businesses took over, and they officially became the community-owned Sheboygan Red Skins.
Now, before they ever joined the NBA, the Redskins weren't just some small-town novelty act. In the National Basketball League, or NBL, which was one of the 2 big leagues that would eventually merge to create the NBA, they were an absolute powerhouse. And this was their home court. Not some glittering modern arena, but the Sheboygan Municipal Auditorium and Armory. This is where an elite professional basketball team battled for national championships. I mean, it doesn't get more authentic than that. The Armory's maximum capacity? Just 3,500 people. To put that into perspective for you, the smallest NBA arena today holds over 17,000. This was intimate, community-driven basketball being played at the highest level. And they were incredibly successful there. They went on this unbelievable run, showing up in 4 straight NBL finals and winning the whole championship in 1943. This wasn't a fluke. This was a legitimate, small-town dynasty in the making.
And their dominance was real. In total, they made it to 5 championship series and were the league's best defensive team 5 different times. They were a cornerstone franchise of the NBL, one of the most respected and, frankly, feared teams of that entire era.
Then came the moment that changed everything. In 1949, the 2 big rival leagues, the NBL and the BAA, finally agreed to merge. And all of a sudden, this small-town powerhouse from Sheboygan was thrust onto the biggest stage in professional basketball. It's a simple, historical fact that's been almost completely forgotten. On that day, Sheboygan, Wisconsin officially had an NBA team. They were in the same league as the Lakers, the Knicks, and the Celtics. Which brings us back to their greatest moment. In front of a standing room-only crowd of 3,800 people absolutely packed into that armory, they took on the Minneapolis Lakers, a team with 4 future Hall of Famers. The legendary George Mikan scored an incredible 42 points, and the Lakers still lost. Sheboygan beat the eventual NBA champions 85-82. But this amazing victory couldn't hide a really big problem. The big city teams from the BAA, like the Knicks, they kind of looked down on the small-town NBL teams. This quote from the Knicks president, Ned Irish, just perfectly captures that disdain they had for franchises like Sheboygan. The culture clash was intense. So despite all their heart and their history, Sheboygan's place in the new NBA was never really secure. The economics of pro basketball were changing fast, and small towns were getting left behind.
This chart shows you just how brutal that first year really was. After only 1 season, the NBA lost 7 of its 17 teams. Sheboygan wasn't alone. Most of the small-market NBL teams were either pushed out or just folded completely.
And so, even after making the playoffs but facing a totally uncertain future, Sheboygan officially left the NBA. Their one and only season in the league was over.
They did try to keep the dream alive, though. Along with some other former NBA teams, they formed a new league, the National Professional Basketball League. Sheboygan actually had the best record in that league, but it wasn't enough to save it. The entire league folded after a single season. They played one last year as a barnstorming independent team, just like in the old days. But attendance was low, the money was gone, and after a final game in 1952, the Sheboygan Red Skins disappeared for good.
So why does this story even matter today? I mean, it's easy to dismiss them as a historical footnote, a piece of trivia. But the story of the Sheboygan Red Skins represents a really fundamental shift in the whole world of sports. Just think about the contrast for a second. The league began with teams that were literally owned by their communities, playing for local pride in places like the Sheboygan Armory. And today, it's a global enterprise of multi-billion-dollar corporations. Sheboygan's story is really the story of that exact transition. They weren't just a team that came and went. They were an NBL powerhouse, an original NBA franchise, and a direct link to the humble, community-based roots of professional basketball. They are a lost founding father of the league we all know and love today.
And really, their story leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. As sports have evolved from these deeply local passions into these massive global businesses, what, if anything, have we lost along the way?